John King and Stacy Lilly, Chapter 4, Counseling, Integrating a Christian Worldview. Stress the importance of cohesiveness and just its use in developing a professional role and understanding that role and its use in developing a professional identity. Now in our textbook, it describes 6 different types of counselors. The first type, the Christian counselor, I don't particularly feel drawn to. Not that I don't respect them, not that I don't value them as a type of counselor. I think they're well needed and highly respectable. However, I'm most worried about the longevity of them. With the recent laws, regulations, and crackdown on unlicensed practices, I'm just a little worried at their longevity. Pastoral counselors, I think they're the most important, or one of the most important. I think they're one of the most respectable type of counselors there are, and I think they're a wonderful group of people. However, I think ultimately their role is the church, and I don't particularly feel equipped to do that. Lay counselor, another wonderful group of counselors that have a lot to be desired about them. They're ordinary people who possess the wonderful personality traits that it takes to be a counselor. But again, I think they're used mostly in the church, and I think that's their role. And that's just not necessarily what I feel drawn to. Not that I don't think they're needed, or not that I don't think they're helpful. I think they're wonderful. Now, a biblical counselor I'm most surprised with, I don't particularly feel drawn to them, specifically out of one belief that biblical counselors have, that the Bible is sufficient for all things mental illness and mental challenges and struggles and everything that comes with that. I don't particularly agree with that. I think the role of the Bible is not exactly what the biblical counselor claims. Then again, I may be wrong. I'm not here to harp on them. And now the professional counselor with a Christian worldview, they are the type of counselor I feel most drawn to. I think there's a need there. I think they're the most important in my particular opinion, essentially because there's such a need for them. All of these types of counselors are important. However, to me specifically, and how I could be a professional counselor, they're the most important to me. I think there's an incredible need with a counselor with a Christian worldview, a true Christian worldview. That is what I aspire to be the most because of that need. Because I feel drawn to the most. That's the cohesiveness I sense. Now, there are some issues with this. Professional counselors, I think they're great, but other professional counselors with a Christian worldview, I'm a little worried about their Christian worldview being different from my Christian worldview. However, through the grace of Christ and seeing everything in the lens of the Bible, I think we'll be okay. Now with the integration model, I think it's a great and wonderful tool. I think it's wonderful. With the allied category, all truth is God's truth. That is what I'm most aligned with, because I do believe that psychology and counseling is not necessarily the invention of new models and techniques, but rather the discovery of what God has already created, and the discovery of what God has made to rule in the law over the human psyche, mental illness, mental wellness, the mind, emotions, all of that. I think it's a wonderful thing, and I think it's something to be studied and pursued. But I do think the integration model is a little bit too compartmentalized. That's the only issue I have with it. Now with the code of ethics, I think it's ultimately our authority figure, and I think we should submit to it as Christians. Now when it comes at the end of the day, when you die, you will answer to God. You will not answer the code of ethics. Just see it through the scripture, through the view of the scripture, and you'll be okay. As long as we pursue Christ, I think everything will be fine.